Shauna Crabe, owner of Crabe Accounting, has been running her accounting firm for 8 years now. Elle Pierce, owner of Pierce Systems, has been running her marketing agency for 2 years. They're at different places in their small business journeys, and they're having unfiltered conversations about what it's really like to be a small business owner. Grab your coffee and join your new small business besties.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Brand and Bank. And today we're going to be talking about mindset and mental health. So, what do you think of that, Elle? How's your mental health right now?
Oh, it's a big question. No, mental health has always been really interesting to me. That's why I got my master's in psychology, so I could talk about this all day long. I feel like being a small business owner really puts your mental health to the test. It stretches it to its limit in many ways. Rejection and loneliness, like working solo, and just in confidence, believing in yourself, because believing in yourself when no one else does, and knowing that the work that you're doing will pay off eventually, and being able to keep going.
Yeah.
That's all mental health, right?
Yeah.
Ties back to that.
And, sometimes you can be so anxious, but you're ambitious at the same time, right? So here I am. I'm just over here shaking because I'm nervous and, I'm scared and all these things. But I have this so much ambitions to do this, and I know I can do it. And so now my mental health is, what is the cost to that? How is that draining me, by just going solo? Because, when you're in corporate America, you don't have to worry about half the things you worry about when you're going solo. You don't have to worry about how you're going to make money. Well, that's not your problem. Your problem is to show up at work, punch in a clock, do your job, and you're fine. You don't worry about any business operations. So now here you are, being so anxious about your mental health. How do I stay zoned and focused, not just on business, but on my personal life, my family, my
Yeah.
other commitments outside of the business?
Yeah.
You ever have any of that sort of struggle with, how do I keep it together? Have you ever felt like you were falling apart, so to speak?
Right before we got on this call every day, I question constantly. Every single day I question, because it's there's never been this moment where I feel like, oh, I've made it. And my business is definitely newer than yours. I'm only 2 years in and you're 8 years in. So I still question, should I keep going? Should I go back to a career? Is what I'm doing even right? Like, am I even on the right track?
Yeah.
And, I'll do pitches and not get the work. And then I question my entire career. Whereas when I was working a job and I would do pitches, it would kind of roll off my back. I'd be like, okay, well, they didn't want to work with the company. And usually it would be more than just me on the pitch. So I'd be able to say, oh, well, John, Bob did this, and that's probably why they didn't work with us.
You know what? You just said something very crucial. You said they didn't want to work with the company. You said they didn't want to work with me. You said they didn't want to work with the company. So why is it that when we become entrepreneurs, we think they don't want to work with me versus they don't want to work with the company? You see how that mental mindset comes into play here?
Yeah.
So that's some of the burdens we put on ourselves, is just kind of rolling up ourselves and the business into one without differentiating and distinguishing the two, because they're two separate entities, so to speak. But
Definitely.
when we are the boss, we treat company like it's us and
Yeah.
not the company. So there's the first thing with helping us with our mental health is separating yourself from the company, not just physically, by how you set up your business structure, but also mentally with how you treat the business and how you think about the business. It's the company. It's not Elle. It's not Shauna. It's the company.
That's a great point. And thinking about that makes me wish I named the business something else. So it would have that separation, like,
Exactly.
more in my mind.
Right. And so you kind of did what a lot of most entrepreneurs do, is you name the business after yourself. So you and your business have the same identity. And so your reputation as the business is tied to your reputation as Elle, because your business is Elle Pierce. And so, yeah, I can see where that does play a little bit of mental acrobatics on you, and maybe others who are listening. that that is going to like keep you up at night.
Yeah. So I guess some advice, maybe think about the name. So if you need that separation in your mind,
Yeah,
I might do a DBA.
exactly. Yeah, do that separation, guys. Keep your business, if you can, out of your name. That way, you know, it's not called L Pierce. It's called something else. Yeah. And another thing you touched on that I like, you said that when you compare yourself, comparison, right? And so it's just like battling that imposter syndrome, right? There's a saying, comparison kills confidence. So if you're constantly comparing yourself to, and I did this, I cannot tell you how many times I've done this. I've even done this to myself, with myself, when myself was in corporate versus myself as a solo entrepreneur. I'm comparing my old self with my new self, and it is mentally grueling. And so it kills our confidence, because when you're looking at somebody else and you're like, wow, that person started their business 1 year ago and they're like up here, and you're 8 years in and you're still like crawling, trying to get where they have just gone. And then you don't understand what they have done to get to that place, right? And also, they may have like money behind them, thousands of dollars behind them. They might have investors, they might have partners, they might have a whole team. So they can afford to do that. Whereas you, as a solo person, don't have the means to be able to do that. And so comparing yourself to somebody who has resources versus you who don't, that's going to kill your confidence. And you're going to be like, well, do I even want to continue to do this?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing. We have to remember we don't know what's going on behind the scenes with other people, and everybody has their struggles, right? So maybe they appear successful, but maybe they're like millions of dollars in debt. Maybe, they owe their partners or their investors and can't pay them yet or whatever. We don't know what it could be.
Right. And you said it. There's always an appearance of something, right? The perception is what you have. It doesn't mean that that's the reality. And so when you're comparing yourself to somebody else and you're like, oh, they're doing so great, the perception is they're doing great, but they're probably having sleepless nights, which leads me into thinking about the fact that as an entrepreneur, you can't turn your brain off, right? You go to bed, you're awake Monday to Friday, not even Monday to Friday, like 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, you're thinking about your business, and then you go to bed and you're also thinking about your business, and you wake up with things on your mind. You're having sleepless nights, fatigue, you can't make a decision. That does wear down on your mental and sometimes trickle on your physical. So how do you handle those sleepless nights? Like, how do you do that?
For me, it's so I don't do well. I don't advise this, but I have severe insomnia, but I kind of always have struggled with it, but it's definitely gotten worse. And so I kind of listen to my body and I've changed my sleep schedule, but I still like I'll work until like 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. sometimes even, and then I'll just sleep, but I'll still do like my 8 hours if I can, if I don't have an early morning meeting or something. And so I still try to get my 8 hours every night, but I've just become like this nighttime person. And then when it comes to the rest of my physical health, working out, I struggle with choosing between getting my workout in or finishing the project I'm working on. And I usually, yeah, I usually pick finishing the project I'm working on. If I'm mentally able to keep working, I will choose to keep working.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what works for me too when I have those sleepless nights? Because hey, sleepless nights can be many things, right? Many factors that causes that. Because one, as I said, you can't turn your brain off, because if you have staff, you're probably thinking about, okay, payroll, can I meet payroll? You're thinking about this huge client that just walked out on you, that revenue is now gone as as well. You're thinking about all the bills that are coming in regardless, and you're thinking about the IRS. You're thinking there's so many things that's just like coming at you. And so for me, when I have those sleepless nights and I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? A physical, like I cannot sleep in noise, right? When I have those days, like if I'm normal, if I'm fine, I don't mind background noise. But if I'm having those nights where I can't turn my brain off and I'm tired, I need like pitch dark room. I need no form of light. I need no form of sound. It has to be drop dead silent for me to fall asleep. Yeah.
That's
So,
hard.
yeah, I cannot sleep with all that white noise and distraction. And then another thing that I do too is when I have those moments when I'm still awake or I wake up in the middle of the night because I'm so restless, I sleep with a notepad and a pen beside my night's table. And so what I do when I wake up, because as an entrepreneur, you can't turn your brain off. There's like a million things you have to do. And sometimes I know for me, I can't remember everything. And if I don't write it down, I'll forget when I wake up. So when I'm sleeping and during my like half sleep, half awake, state, I have a notepad and a pen, and I'll just jot something down that I remember. And I'll wake up in the morning, and even if it's like a little scribble, I'll remember what it is because then I have a ton of things to do. And you wake up and you're like, oh my god, what am I supposed to do today? And then you forget. You don't want to miss out on like important stuff. So that's what I do. I jot stuff down, and I keep a notepad and a pen by my bed. That just
In the
helps.
middle of your sleep, you jot things down.
Even if I and I think too, because what also keeps us up is knowing that we have all these things to do, and somehow I feel like our brain is trying to remember the things we have to do, which is also why we can't fall asleep. And so I find when I do write those down and get them out of my brain, I can fall asleep easier because now
Yeah,
my brain is not trying to work hard to remember those things that I have to do when I wake up.
for sure. So going back to anxiety, the number one thing that minimizes anxiety for me as a business owner is having my lists. I use Asana like crazy because if I can clearly look at all the things I have to do, and if I think of something new and I can plug it in, then it's off my mind and I can relax knowing that I'm going to get everything done that I need to get done. And also being in a creative job, it's a marketing agency, I have to be able to get my creative brain working. I need to have those things off of my mind so that I can get into that creative mode.
Yeah, yeah. And I would recommend that too for any entrepreneur. We use it in our firm. We use a project management software or task management, whatever you're using, your company. You want to make sure that you do have a way of keeping track of your daily task, because not just for you, but for your staff, they need to know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So that's a good takeaway to make sure you have that.
Yeah, I did something last week. I upgraded to the paid version of Asana for myself so I could add points to everything. So I could really see, like, manage my workload. And then I also have for my personal things like trying to get in workouts and things like that, I use TickTick and I attach the two with Zapier. So yeah, cool on there.
Yeah. And so one more thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is how do I know when it's time to quit? Knowing when to pivot or walk away. When do I pivot? Like I'm at this place in my business where things just not going right. You're wondering, it's pulling too much from me mentally. When do I walk away or do I just pivot to something else? I've had to pivot before because I've gotten to this very question and I'm like, do I walk away? Do I pivot? And looking long term, I saw, okay, the benefit of just keep going. But in that moment, it feels like, okay, I got to do something, pivot or walk away. And so I chose to pivot. And 8 years later, we're still here. So for you, what do you think about that?
So I've pivoted recently. I started my business working on government contracts, just winning business with government contracts. And more recently, I've kind of pivoted to work on AI projects for businesses. And that was kind of I guess, a natural pivot because I'm so into technology that I was just kind of doing this fun project for a business owner that I know. And it just evolved into more work and everyone's into AI right now and figuring out AI automation, and so that's kind of the new direction of my business. And I think if you have to be able to kind of let go of ideas and kind of go with the flow a little bit to be able to pick up on new things, right? To be able to pivot successfully, you have to recognize when your old opportunity is no longer viable and you need to go for something new.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Got to recognize it. If it's not making you money, and
Yeah.
and you can't see long term that it will make you money, and it's just draining money from you, yeah, it's time to pivot. Try something new, try something different. Even if you're in the same industry, you might want to try something different within the industry, or if it gets to a point where maybe the type of work you're doing is just kind of like one set and done, yeah, maybe walk away from that and start something new. um I've had to do that before, walk away from a whole new industry and start something different because it just wasn't working out. So yeah.
What was your pivot? You said
Oh,
that you pivoted before.
yes. So I have a bachelor's in fashion merchandising and marketing.
I didn't know that.
Things you learn, Elle, the things you learn. And so I absolutely love fashion, everything about fashion. And I started a couple of years, it's been probably over 12 years, a fashion label before. It was making a little bit of traction, wasn't selling as much, wasn't getting into stores, none of that stuff. Was just like doing like small little pop-up fashion shows here and there, maybe have a few people come up to me and be like, oh, I love this, let me buy that. But it wasn't going anywhere and it was pulling too much mentally, financially from me. And so I had to just totally kill that dream and just go back to what I knew best, which was accounting, which my masters, both my masters are in accounting and forensic accounting. But then my career, when I first started my first job, I was working in accounting, but I wanted to leave that world and go do something more, what's the word? Fun,
Yeah.
more artsy type thing, I would say. And then uh, this was why I pivoted to doing fashion, but that didn't work out. So now I went back to where I guess this is where I should have been in the first place. So yeah, that was my moment of, yeah, I need to walk away. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you said you needed to kill your dream to make money, right? Basically. Yeah, I kind of had an experience doing that too. So I always, and I'm not saying I was ever any good at this, but I always had this dream of being an actress. And so when I lived in Atlanta, I spent about 10, maybe 10 years kind of, taking acting classes, doing indie projects and things like that. And I was trying to, make it mainstream, make money at it. I never actually made money at it really. And eventually I had to just, give that up and realize that my marketing career was always going to be what was going to pay the bills. So I wonder if most entrepreneurs, most small business owners have had kind of a dream that they gave up to
Yeah.
make money.
I bet the numbers are just astounding. I
Yeah.
bet. Because reality is you have bills to pay. You have
Hmm.
a living to make, you have a family, some people do. And so you can't just follow a dream that's not paying off. That's just taking money out of your pocket. And so I can attest that a lot of entrepreneurs probably just give up on their first love and just go to something that they know is a guaranteed paycheck. That's just the curveball life throws you,
It is.
and you
Absolutely.
have to pivot or walk away.
It's capitalism.
Yay! All right, guys. So thank you again for joining us on another episode of Brand and Bank. And this episode, we talked about your mental health. So we want to make sure that as entrepreneurs, you're prioritizing your mental health. Some of the things that you think about was you're going solo on this journey, still do the things that can help you. Elle likes to work out, so do I, but fit those things into your work life schedule and not just work, 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 because you will deteriorate. Never, never compare yourself, as that is a confidence killer, right? You want to stay true to who you are and what you know and what you know how to do. And then knowing when to turn your brain off. Find the things that you need to do to help you to slow down, to, go for a walk in the evenings, whatever it has to do to kind of like turn your brain off at the end of the day. Drink some chamomile tea. That tends to help too, to just get you to wind down before bed, because you do need your mental health for that. And last but not least, know when to pivot or walk away. Do the math. If it's not working out, if it's not paying your bills, if it's causing you stress and sleepless nights, maybe it's time to try something new, or maybe it's time to just walk away. And so with that, we thank you again for joining us on another episode, and we look forward to seeing you on another episode. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.